So take a look at this schematic and PCB. This power trace VCC5M going into this chip is sized for 7 amps. See all that copper that allows for 7 amps to go through there on the PCB. Then when we follow this trace, the VCC5M up to the connectors, it has a couple of fuses. It has this fuse F2 and F1, and these parts are protecting it. Now, when I highlight this trace, there are other traces nearby that are much smaller in size. Some of these carry only 200 microamps, maybe 300 microamps. That's the same board, but 2 different size of traces. That's more than 23,000 times different from each other. Now, if I go into the micro SD part of this circuit, these traces are sized according to different laws of physics from the bigger trace and copper board that I showed you for the power trace. If you size the first one wrong, your copper is going to overheat. If you size this one wrong, your copper is not going to overheat. It will stay cool, but your signal is going to get corrupted anyway. By the end of this video, you'll know how to size each of these traces, the mechanisms behind the trace sizing, and how to do it for real. So for the first kind of trace, this is what most people size their traces like. They go into the chip and then figure out what is the current carrying capacity for that chip. When I go in here, we'll look at the MP5087GG. When I click on here and pull up the datasheet, when I pull up this device and open its datasheet, it tells me what it's working with. It shows the features like typical 7 amp load current range, but I'm most interested in the electrical specs table. So there are a few things of interest here. If we look at the current limit, it says that I out on the output side of the chip, its minimum is 1.54. typical 1.64, and maximum 1.74. This is something that I would note on my schematic, whether I place a comment or requirement and say, hey, this needs to be at most 1.64 amps, or are typical. When we go down to the graphs, you have typical performance characteristics and the I limit versus temperature. This is for if your VIN is at 3.6 volts, you have your 25 degrees C temperature, and your RIMON is 10.5 kilo ohms in resistance. Here with that resistor, we can go up to about 7.5 amps at most temperatures. Now, I'm going to skip all the calculations. Let's say you get the values you need for your traces. How do you implement them in your schematic as rules? And mind you, this is still for the electron flow of your first types of trace, your power traces. I'm going to address how you size your traces for your signal traces in the latter part of this video. So what I would do is get this thing called the place parameter set and then grab and place it on my net. Then double click on there and add a specific net class, and I'd call that the power net class. So we'll call that power. Once that's done, I want to add another thing like a rule. I then add a width constraint under routing, click add. Now what width do I choose? This is where we get into our online calculator. Skip the IPC2221 calculators for now and go to the IPC2152. Okay, so this is where we set our expected amps for our trace, the allowed temperature rise for the trace, very important. A trace can carry as much current as you want through it. It's just how much temperature rise are you allowing through that? Do you want it to burn up, melt off? That's fine. It'll carry the current. So let's say we only allow up to 20 degrees rise in the centigrade and the PCB thickness is 62 mil. Where would we get this? Well, you would have your standard PCB stack ups from your fabricators, get their typical board thicknesses, but size it to whatever makes sense for you. Just to double check, you can go to your board design, then go to design, layer stack manager, and it'll show the total thickness here, 54201 millimeters. That comes to about 60.7 mils. So back in my IPC calculator, we'll go 60.7 mils. Is there a plane? Yes, we have multiple planes. Then find the plane area. So here back in the PCB stack up, we have our ground plane, right? So the plane area you can estimate from the board information report. Go to your board design, then under reports, choose board information. Then choose board specification. Once you generate a report, it will give you the board size, and then you can use this to calculate your board size in square inches. Currently, this is in square millimeters. And what I could do to make my life easy, instead of calculating this in my calculator like I'm doing right now, check this out. So I can change my units by hitting the Q key on my keyboard. That changes it from millimeters on the bottom here down to mils. So when I generate my report again, go to reports, board information, board specs, it will generate that in mils. In terms of inches, we'll just kind of divide that by 1,000, right? So 5.858 inches by 2.559 inches. And that still comes out to 14.99 square inches. So our plane area is 14.99 square inches. The distance to the plane D in mils, we can get that from the board stack up. So right here from the top copper layer, the bottom to the plane, that's 3.937 mils. So we'll put 3.937 mils, then calculate. This gives us a copper area that's appropriate, 10.7 square mils, pretty small. And then rail width, only 8.23 mils required for our rail, or larger. So this is the minimum I would size my traces. I'd go back into Altium, back to the schematic parameter set, click add that rule. Under routing, choose width constraint, double click there and set my minimum width to 8.23 mils. Preferred width, we can go with 10 mils, and maximum width, we could set that to 20 mils. This can work for the top layer and bottom layer of the PCB, but notice this is for the default stack. I want to go with the PCB stack up that I'm actually using, and boom, it automatically maps and transfers onto there. Now, minimum width can change depending on the layer that you're inside, but we're going to leave it as this for now. Click OK, and we're good to go. Now, every trace that I route that has the PowerNet class will follow that rule automatically. I just need to make sure I add the parameter set on each of those nets. Now, a lot of engineers will just stop there at current carrying capacity, but you have your other signals like the SD card reader and SD card on this schematic. Those need to be controlled to 50 ohm impedance. What does that mean? Well, signal traces are always guiding electromagnetic waves and fields. And those electromagnetic waves and fields are not traveling through the trace or copper, they're traveling through the dielectric material underneath the trace, or traveling through air, which is another kind of dielectric. That means the width of the trace, the thickness of it, how far away it is from its reference plane, and how thick your dielectric is, even the dielectric constant, are all affecting the shape of the electromagnetic wave. You might think this is only relevant in high-speed complex boards. That's not the case. Electromagnetic fields need to be managed and traces need to be impedance control based on the communication protocol that you're using. And whether you treat a trace like a transmission line depends solely on the rise time of the signal going from, say, a 0 to 0.9 volt transition and how rapidly it's changing versus the electrical length of the trace that's guiding it. If you don't get this right, your signals are going to show up choppy and you're going to get errors in your communication for that protocol. So in this next half of the video, I'll show you how to size your traces for impedance control so you can get your signals right and communicating. So for the SD signals, these need to be 50 ohms controlled impedance. Stay with me because there's a lot that needs to be set up here. Number one, let's say I want to drop on this parameter set and then rotate with the space bar, place it down here. Then I'm going to right click and then use a blanket. The blanket allows me to put any parameter set around multiple wires or objects. So I'm going to place my blanket here, and this is very specific and you have to be very precise here. So I'm going to try to close that and hit escape. So now the blanket is finished. Right click to exit blanket mode. Then I can drag this parameter set to attach to that blanket. Double click on the parameter set. We're going to add some parameters here. So we're going to click add. The net class I want is 50 ohms. We'll call this S50 for single-ended impedance 50 ohms. Then go here, we're going to add a rule to this and a width constraint. Now, the width constraint, I want this to use an impedance profile. What does this mean? We need to use a stackup to set up 50 ohm impedance profiles. So let's go over to the PCB. In the PCB stackup, let's go to the design layer stack manager. We need to add an impedance profile to an already finished PCB stackup. All right. Now click on the impedance tab, and in the impedance tab, I can choose add impedance profile. This gives me something, and I'll call this description S50 or single-ended 50 if you prefer that. This will be a single-ended impedance 50 ohms, target tolerance 10%. I won't go for stack-up symmetry because our PCB stack-up is not like perfectly symmetrical. But notice here, the field solver automatically calculates the single-ended impedance I'm expecting on my layers of the PCB. Very cool. I'm going to go with the default rest of these settings here, then right-click and save. So these are the properties that are in my impedance profile S50. Now I can go back over to my schematic, but let's first save the PCB. Now, before I go over to the schematic, I need to sync the settings in the PCB to the schematic, including that impedance profile. So save everything. Then we're going to go to the design. You need to update the schematics. All right. Update the schematics from this PCB stackup settings, validate the changes, execute them, and we should be good to go. So now we're over back into the schematic. In my parameter set, I'll double click here, click add, then choose my rule, and then set width constraint. Now there's something very important. This is using the default stackup. I want to select my Kame MB stackup. That's what allows me to see the impedance profile. Then I can check mark here, use impedance profile, and voila. It gives me my preferred trace widths automatically calculated by the field solver in the tool. So now I can click OK. Now every trace that is in this blanket attached to this parameter set will automatically put in the net class S50 and have the trace width necessary to achieve that 50 ohm single-ended impedance on my PCB. Be sure to save all documents and we're done. All right, so there it is. Every trace width on this design came from one of two mechanisms. Electron flow and temperature rise is what set the power trace widths, along with the IPC2152 that helped us calculate this, and the electromagnetic wave set the signal trace widths. Those are in impedance profiles tied to the PCB stackup. Now, at higher frequencies, things like skin effect and copper roughness, fiber weave, and all those things will affect this, but those are to address in a separate video. Everything you saw me do, I did using Altium Develop, and the requirements for this design are in the Altium Develop workspace. That's the environment I work through every day, especially with helping my clients. It looks very professional. Click the link in the description below if you'd like to try it. Now, here's what I want to leave with you. The electromagnetic waves and fields are doing the real work as they go through the dielectric material, as they go through air, like with the remote that can turn on and off my light. The electrons within the copper structures guiding the fields are just responding to the waves and fields. Watch my video where I explain the difference between the two.